the Village of Weston agenda meeting for Finance and Human Resource Committee to order. Stand for the pledge, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
There's Luby. Here. Armley.
Here.
Farr. Absent. Hackler. Here. Minell.
Here.
Infidel.
Present.
Zagami.
Here.
Any public comments? Anyone on?
Just staff online.
Minutes from previous meeting of December 16th of 2024.
Move to approve.
Motion by Zagami,
Second.
second by Hackbar. On the question, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so carried. Acknowledge work product transmittals. Item 5, draft December budget status report. Any questions or?
There's a memo in your packet. We still are anticipating a surplus from the general fund. We have not really started year-end entries yet, plus we are still accruing for the accounts payable, so that number will be changing. But we are looking at having a surplus yet. All the other funds, there's nothing too exciting going on. The debt service, we did say is over budgeted by 460. We still need to do the budget amendment from when the debt was approved. With that, you'll see an increase in proceeds, and then you'll see the premium, which is also a revenue, and then that will be offset by the issuance costs. So we still have some work to do before December's done.
Any questions further?
Just have one question on the operating budget status report. When I looked at it, the December 23 actuals and the to date, December 31st, 2024 were identical, which to me is almost statistically impossible. So I'm not sure which one's the correct one. If these are really December 23s or these December 24s actuals. It could happen, but statistically, it's probably not going to be. It doesn't, there's no page. Oh, let me see on the page if I can.
13.
I guess it's December 2023 are not correct.
Ah, gotcha.
Actually, well, 24s are not correct because you can see the taxes. Or the,
Well, the transfer and contingency are dashed out.
we'll represent the December next month. We'll have better numbers anyway.
Yeah,
They're all
I figured it was
changing
just
yet.
draft, but.
Thank you for noting that.
The only question I had, and I'm not sure, was you had a, I don't know what I want to call it, a reserve fund. Did you pay off a note or that you had, that it could only be used for interest?
Okay, so when we sold our bonds, we get a premium. We had like, I'd say almost a $600,000 premium. So what that means is we issued our bonds for say 4.5 million, right? They gave us 5 million. So that difference is 500,000. That's a premium. So they gave us more money than what we have to pay back.
This isn't one that has to be kept in a reserve. or anything.
We keep it in the debt service fund, and what they expect is in our first interest payment, say our debt schedule shows we have to pay $200,000 for our first interest payment. Well, that we are expected to use $30,000 from that premium to pay down the interest. So what happens is when we issue debt, we we purchase it based on the true interest cost. So if you were to just look at our debt schedule, the interest payment on our first pay that's due this year is actually, say, 6%. But because they give us money to buy that rate down, the true interest cost to say is only 2.5% to 3%. So when we decide who we want to buy our debt, we look at the true interest cost. Does that make sense?
Yes, I
So
was,
they
I
give us
guess,
more money than what we have to pay
Yeah.
back, but we're expected to give them that money back when we pay the interest, which is buying down the interest. So we pick them as the winner, the big winner for our bond.
yeah, because I was wondering if this was, I can remember that we would have some notes out there and then there was a dollar amount that we had to more or less, the institution or whatever would take it and hold it into the account. And it equaled like
The last
1
payment.
year's interest or.
So that's more common with a revenue bond.
Okay.
We issue revenue bonds for water, sewer, storm, CDA, for example. They do keep that, like right now in our 2017 A issuance for our CDA and the 2004 CDA debt issuances. We have an amount in associated trust that's just to pay that last year.
Yeah, well, that's what, and I didn't know if that's what this
No.
was, but it didn't make sense because that's not how we used it and I couldn't, that's
No.
why I was asking. I was
Yeah.
just, okay, thank you. Oh. Jim?
Page 24 on the dog park donations, that was an expenditure from dog parks, or that was a check that bounced on a donation? For $317.
Oh, that means what we, in 2023, we spent more than what we earned. So we have a negative fund balance, so we continue to spend out of our dog donations fund, we spent more than what we had.
Okay.
So
very
we
well.
purchased bags and we didn't get enough revenue to cover those bags.
Good to go. And then, for the farmer's market, I think it's all that. Are the vendor and lease costs from 24 being carried on to 25, or are those being increased to match the rest of our fee schedule to keep up with inflation?
At this point, that we did not approve a change in the farmer market fees on the most recent fee schedule that we did.
So the farmer's market fee is in the fee schedule? I don't recall seeing that. We went through it like 4 times on the board.
And it's not in the fee schedule, but we did not increase it.
And who or when or where do we talk about doing that? 'Cause I just, not that I'm a big proponent of increasing fees, but what I don't wanna see is a 50% increase 10 years from now to be like, oh gosh, it's no longer $25 for a space, it's $100 or $150 for a space because
I
our
don't think
eggs
right
is
now
94 bucks.
our revenues are exceeding our expenditures. So I don't think it's a major cause for alarm. So what the farmer market fees are covering right now is we have a part-time person in there. That's in the expenditures. We also have toilet rental. We pay $1 a year to Lockery. And then the tokens. So the tokens are the big thing that you're gonna see as a revenue and expense, because when we sell tokens to people at the farmer's market, we get a fee to cover the expense, because every month, what's that service that charges us a fee for the token? There's a service that we use, that we have the credit card machine, they charge us a fee every month. So our goal is to collect enough of the extra revenue to cover that fee, and that's what you see in the miscellaneous and then the farmer's market. So I don't bring up a concern to raising revenues until when we look at the budget, when we did the 2025 budget and at year end, unless I see a trend where we're not covering enough funds to cover the expenditures. The goal is not to have a fund balance. It should be covering the expenditures that we have for the farmer's market.
Thank you.
I have one more question.
Go ahead.
On page 25, just curious about your ARPA funds and when you have to have those expended by.
They have to be expended this year, or else we have to have a signed contract. At this point, we have neither. We don't have a signed contract, so what we're gonna be doing is moving street projects funds. So we had a couple of street projects, and we'll be using ARPA funds to cover those expenditures. Originally, it was being saved for Kennedy Park, but because we couldn't get a signed contract, we kind of waited to the last minute to see if that would happen and didn't. So that's what you're gonna see is some journal entries. Under expenditures, you're gonna see public works, and I'm gonna have the Jelnik project and one other project in there, and we'll be using the ARPA funds to cover those projects. We did borrow for those projects, so we will just be using those borrowed funds for street projects to cover Kennedy.
It's gonna be my next question.
Interesting. So, because I'm managing a bunch of ARPA funds and I have been for years now, and we were told drop dead date of June 30th. Do you have that same drop dead date? Okay, yours is a little bit different.
If we would have had a signed agreement, we would have had until the end of 2026 to expend, but without a signed agreement, it was the end of last year.
Our drop dead date is December 31st. Obviously, with the journal entries, I
Okay, so you got a
can
journal entry
backdate
in.
them to 12/31.
And
When
then-
I file a report with the federal government, which is in April, I'm gonna have to have all my ducks in a row and make sure I report back adequately on that report.
We got extensions till June 30th. I've got a few more months to stuff. But did you have investment income? Is that based on their ARPA funds?
We did, and I know there was no requirement to keep it in there, but we kept it in that fund because we did generate quite a bit, so that will just go into the CIP or the projects we choose to spend with that. Obviously, I will not be reporting it on the federal government, but on our.
Are you able to keep investment income? Because we're not able to. We have to return it to the feds.
No, there was no requirement on that with this ARPA.
With this feds, it's part of the OMB. The super circular requires and
I
investment
can look
income.
at that, but.
Either
all
as
the-
program income, you can turn it back into program income dollars. And that would go to the whatever the projects, but otherwise it gets sent back to the federal government. If you look at the to CFR 200.
Okay, so we are spending it on the project that we.
Yeah, I would advise that. I wouldn't try and keep any investment income off of the ARPA dollars. You're not supposed to really profit off of it.
Right.
So I would, but if you put it back into the project and use
Right.
those funds for the
That's why
projects.
we have it in the
Yeah.
fund. Yeah.
Anything else? Jim?
Well, I guess since we're talking about interest income, on page 26, I see 23 and 24, the interest income on the water utility fund is off by like a couple $100.
Yep.
Year over year. So it's something we would maybe adjust that estimation for next year, or we were thinking those dollars would go away this year and they didn't.
We bumped it up a little bit. I don't know if you remember, interest rates were supposed to drop towards the beginning of the year, and they never did. In 2024, they never came down. It's, for me, it's not a big number I worry about, because it's,
Anything else?
That is all.
Okay. Okay. So, then do we want to acknowledge all three or just do one at a time?
Move to acknowledge December,
Go ahead.
move to acknowledge December draft budget status report as presented.
By Benson? You seconded?
Second.
By Husheng. On the question, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so carried. Item 6, TIF 1 and TIF 2 detail reports for December. Any questions? Yes, Jim?
What rents and leases are TIF expenses?
so if you remember, what we have is the we have a relationship between Fund 21 and Fund 27. So 21 is the Special Revenue TIF Fund, and 27 is the CDA TIF 1 Special Revenue Fund. The CDA fund pays all the debt. Remember, it's a revenue bond. General governmental funds such as special revenue funds cannot take out revenue bonds. So that's why we created the CDA, Community Development Authority, and they can issue revenue bonds. Those revenue bonds are secured by TIF increment, which is looked at separately than tax money. Like your general tax levy cannot be used to secure a revenue bond. So with that, the TIF Fund 21 needs to pay its increment enough to pay the principal and interest of this revenue bond to Fund 27. So what you're gonna see is the rents or leases in 21, and then in 27, you'll see the income, and those would offset, and then you'll see a transfer out to debt service. So when we pay the revenue bonds, you're gonna see out of 21 into 27, out of 27 into 30. So the monies move from 21 to 27 to 30. So that revenue, the lease is actually the principal and interest of the 2017 revenue bond.
Perfect, thank you.
Sorry. It was set up really poorly, but I think that's the way it had to be set up because it was a revenue bond.
Okay, anything else? Okay, need a motion to acknowledge TIF 1 and TIF 2 detail reports for December.
I'll move to acknowledge
Moved by
TIF
Hushain,
1 and TIF 2.
do I have a second?
I'll second it.
By Steve, myself. Question? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so carried. Legal details for December. Any questions? Motion to acknowledge,
Move for approval.
motion by Steve, yeah,
Second.
second by Hushain. On the question, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so carried. Educational presentation and reports, acknowledge recent staff transitions.
It's just a memo in the packet that talked about any and all of our staff transitions from the last 6 months. So from July to December, they're listed there in the packet. And I will do this every 4 to 6 months going forward. And then I also then just included an updated org chart, because I think it's just helpful to see the layout.
I like that, because I don't know who's who anymore. All right, any other questions or concerns? Okay. Motion to acknowledge recent staff transitions.
Motion to acknowledge recent staff transitions.
Second.
Second by Jim Pinstall. On the question, all in favor side by signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so carried. Acknowledge completion of the 2024 evaluations for all staff.
I noted last year, and I just wanted to note again this year, that all staff have a 2024 evaluation on file and with the HR manager upstairs. So everyone has a 2024 evaluation as of December 31st.
Great job.
Acknowledge,
Move to acknowledge that all staff have been reviewed for 2024.
Second.
Pinstall. Second by Hackbar. On the question, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so carried. Trying to speak faster than my brain. Old business, discussion and or possible action on recommendation to the village board on modifications to the employee personal policies and procedures handbook, chapter 14, employee separations and retirements. Okay. Any question, what's your pleasure on that?
I have some questions.
We should get it on the floor before we. I know, we have to have a motion to talk about it.
I move to recommend the adoption of the amendments, to the Employee Personnel Policies and Procedure Handbook, Chapter 14, Employee Separations and Retirements to the Board of Trustees.
Okay, motion by Pincinel, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Husheng. On the question, now, go
Yes.
for it.
Thank you. Just a question about really your summary plans for your 457B. For the separation for PTO payouts, does it allow, your plan allow converting that into the funds?
I believe so, as long as the individual want to have already contributed their max for the year.
Okay, but your plan allows for that.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, because that's been part of our policy for some time. And Renee looked this over too, and I don't know that we have very many people that have taken advantage of it, but
But it's an option for
yeah.
them. Then the only other question I have is in section 14.03, number 8, where it talks about the village reserving the right to subtract from the PTO payout balances owed to the village should the employee voluntarily leave the village within 1 year following the completion of a course which the employee was reimbursed from the village through the education reimbursement program. It will be at the discretion of the administrator to determine if any amount of the reimbursement is owed back to the village. There's been some recent legal updates on clawback of compensation that they're provided. Do they sign off ahead of time before receiving that they agree to that coming back?
That's a good question. I don't know that we have had a lot of people take advantage of the reimbursement for tuition, but we should have them sign off that they're making that commitment. So
Yeah, there's been some legal things in there, so we might want to take a look at that before.
I
we
thought
finalize
that-
that.
Yeah, there, I'm trying to think. Jenna was the last one, maybe?
They did too. I think there's a form.
There was a form you'd sign out
in the
and,
back of the handbook.
yeah.
And it
Or
has to
in
get
that
approved,
chapters.
it has to get approved by a board and then, yeah, then everyone signs it.
Just make sure that it's got the required legal language in there as
Okay.
well.
Anybody else?
In regard to that, does that encompass any training if I took forklift training or whatever, some notary, a public conference or something? Like, is that considered training that would be reimbursable or continuing education? Is it specifically called out, or this is it, right? Like, there's, how about on-the-job training?
So we
What
all
does
have,
that look like?
but
we all
then
have
when,
budget items for that on the job training, like Roman and Travis. They have something in their budget for training, for the continuing ed that they have to take.
But I don't mean it could be any formal class, but not necessarily, hey, I'm taking this Math 101 at the community college. That I think is the primary purpose of this, but all of these other things are technically training, right? So whether it's on the job training, learn how to, whatever, run this excavator, or if it's going to the, I don't know, the municipalities, something class, or like, all of these are trainings and they may or may not be paid, like, or dollars to go to this training. Is that, what, can we spell that out?
Yeah, I guess the two people I can think of, they went and got an additional degree or certification, which then they seeked reimbursement for. And so they paid for it initially and they came back and requested reimbursement for that additional education. So
It sounds like you've got more information maybe in that education reimbursement program, chapter 8, section 5, which I didn't look at.
yeah,
The way we always look at it is if the company requires the training, that is not something that's because the
Yeah.
company is requiring the individual to receive that training. That's on the company. But if a individual wants to seek further education, they can apply out of our fund, and then that would be, and there are clawback provisions if they leave the organization within a certain amount of time, you sign a contract. I don't know what's your contract, but there's, if you have one in the handbook that says that there is that provision that if you leave within a certain couple of years, you do have to reimburse. And then it's also important, I think, what, cause I just had an experience, not me personally, but I knew about experience where this happened at an organization I worked at, that did come up on many, many legal challenges. And some people were, yeah, you just have to be very, it has to be very detailed. It has to do percentages of payback. I don't know, would you say so?
You know, it's a new clawback provision. And I don't know exactly specific language in there. I just went to a recent seminar maybe 2 months ago and they talked about that, and we had to update more of our agreements for maybe sign-on bonuses and those type of things. So they know it's voluntary, they can get it up front or they can get it at the end, but they understand it. So it's just something to take a look at because it's fairly new and I can't speak to it eloquently right now.
No, but we can look at that form and make sure, but I would agree that this is specifically for
Education.
outside education. Where you would be seeking the reimbursement, but if we just recently had it, if someone got their notary, but it's required as part of their position, so that was our expense.
And you can't have the employee reimburse you for that.
No. But they also took the training while they were here, right?
Right.
So.
Anybody else? I had a question, but I can't ask it because I didn't bring my notes with me. In one, and I haven't found it, I've been paging through here. They had where the village of Weston, they were using it like almost a name that they would say report to the village of Weston, not administrator or whatever. But I can't find it in here now. And for whatever reason, 13 is stuck in my head when I marked down what section it was, and it's sitting on my little thing. So if I find it, when I get home, I'll maybe look again, maybe I was imagining. Reading all that after a while. But yeah, it looked like you took that they reported something to the HR resource person and they crossed that out and just left village. And it didn't make any sense because you can't, it was like you were using village as a person. Well, I will get that. I realized I didn't stick it in my first as we
Oh,
were.
it's probably page 73.
Pardon?
Page 73, found. Give permission to the employee resource manager is crossed out and just says Village of Weston.
And it did it a couple times, so.
And that's for the release of a reference check?
Yes, it
And-
was.
Yeah, and I did make that general just to the village because,
But who, village, how do you?
so this would be if a former or current employee, so likely they would fill it out and they would be asking for their immediate supervisor or for, who would likely be Renee to do that, but they would be indicating that with filling out the form. So I think that's why I kept it general for the village, because they would be submitting it to us on who would they want to provide that reference.
Yeah, but then, yeah. It just seems so vague as to, okay, village, that could be anybody in the village.
I can add immediate supervisor or
Yeah.
the HR.
Thank you. Thank you. I looked up all the while you were talking, I was going up and down here. Okay, Jim,
Linda, would you prefer to see this back after those changes are made, or you're good with send it and hope for the best? There's probably no sense of urgency on this, I don't think, right? Like, it doesn't have to get approved tonight.
I don't-
I get it, it's on the board, but I will gladly withdraw my motion if that's and amend it
I
to.
don't think it's about this. I think it's about that as long as the language is in the
As long as the
handbook.
language
Yeah,
Handbook aligns with what's in the handbook, right?
in the sign off,
In the sign off.
in the agreement.
So that wouldn't impact this. That would impact the handbook.
The form that
The
they're
form.
completing.
I wouldn't have a problem just forwarding it with the corrections and then note the corrections to the board so that they're aware of what we're correcting.
Is
That's
that,
been corrected, I'm sorry.
Full send.
is that, it looks like it falls really under that education reimbursement program
Right.
is where that language really needs to sit.
Mhm.
So I would be okay with that, Jim.
For this motion to be with the correction.
Yeah, we should amend it to include the corrections.
Okay.
Well, amend or just something, yeah.
So I'll withdraw my motion.
You don't have to draw, you can
You don't
amend
have to
it.
just
Amend it.
amend it,
I can,
okay?
but I can also withdraw it, right? Either way, it has to get seconded and you gotta do it twice. So then we don't have to vote on it twice if we just simply withdraw it. See what I'm doing here, Barb?
Fine.
Who was the second?
I was the second.
Okay.
I'll withdraw my second.
Okay, the motion has been withdrawn and the second has been withdrawn. Now what's your pleasure?
I move to recommend the adoption of the amendments to the Employee Personnel Policies and Procedures Handbook, Chapter 14, Employee Separations and Retirements to the Board of Trustees with the changes as discussed. The January 20th, 2025 Finance and HR Committee meeting.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Hackbarth. All in favor signify by saying aye.
I
Opposed? So carried. I should ask if there was any other questions. I'm sorry. But, okay. Thank you. Got that straightened out. Now, new business.
So, Madam Chair, we do have, Dennis did join us, just so we want to note for the minutes and then he can join us for the next ones going forward. But then we have to have, because we're at 7.
No, but Brent can't.
It's not
vote.
voting anyways. Come on, you're good. Water's fine.
Okay, making sure.
So Dennis officially on the committee now?
Dennis is officially on the committee. Brent gets appointed. And then we'll be.
Okay, now, new business. Item 11, discussion and or possible action on recommendation to the village board on proposed job description and funding for new assistant zoning administrator, code enforcement officer position in planning and development department. Okay. What's your pleasure? I have a motion to get it on the table.
Sure, I move to recommend the Board of Trustees approve the creation of the Assistant Zoning Administrator Code Enforcement Officer.
Motion by Benjamin, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. We have a motion second on the question. Okay, I should know, look over this way.
Okay, I look that way too and I can't see. Okay. I'm not crazy about the Assistant Zoning Administrator title. It seems like an improper title for the duty, but that's for the group to decide. Maybe there's alternate language we could use for that. I do have some questions about the job description and the overall soup to nuts on this whole jazz here. How does this particular position, it looks like it would focus primarily on code enforcement. How would that get more projects approved and relieve the bottleneck in the planning and review process that we currently have? Totally respect the need for code enforcement. But I think we need something different. Also, I don't know if this needs to be a skill level of Juliet. It may be able to be a lesser skill level. And likely a part-time position. I don't know that we have the capacity to, I don't think we have enough wrong here to have a full-time grass watcher guy or girl. And then I really just think that overall, we maybe just need to look at perhaps two positions or restructuring this department. If there's X number of dollars for planning and zoning, use planning and zoning those number of dollars and just operate within those numbers. So if that's 4 people if it's a $400,000 budget and that's 4 people at $100,000 each, or if that's 8 people at $50,000 each, I think we need to leave that to the department director and administrator to run their department. I don't think that should happen here. If we want to create the ability to make this position, this pay grade, and this job description, that's great. But I don't think it's our role. We're not sitting in that office up there to have a pulse on how that workload should best be distributed between 1 person, 5 people, or 55 people. I think just funding it within the current budget guidelines.
Comments?
Can I make a comment?
Jennifer?
So I brought this up because as I was looking at my department needs for the year, after doing reviews, and we've talked about it for many years, we end up with a bottleneck in the summer. The summer's our busiest time. So you have code enforcement cases going on. We've got people coming in that want to build decks, garages, fences, some of those easier permits that technically the building inspectors don't need to be sitting there taking in those permits. In the past, and essentially this position isn't all that much different than the assistant planner position, but the problem is, and we just saw this, and we don't do a whole lot of planning here. We do a lot of permitting, getting things built, that kind of thing. So when I put out a job description for an associate planner, I'm getting people who want to do traffic plans, but want to do downtown plans, public art, things that we're never, I mean, it could be years from now, but I really don't think a lot of that stuff is going to happen. If we do, we tend to utilize a consultant because we just don't have the staff to do that stuff on our own. So in trying to basically get the position filled with someone who is not adverse to code enforcement, we all do code enforcement. I'm picking up the slack right now on all of that. We're using the PD a lot more. We're kind of working through that. That was a big thing that we did this summer. But we're also still have to get those permits out. So we had talked about a permit intake person. I just wanted a job description that was going to be more like what this person was going to be doing right off the bat, because that's the need of the department, is to keep those code cases going. I have 41 of them sitting upstairs in some aspect. That's probably not going to change. We lose them, we get them. Some of these take up to a year to even close out. We need someone monitoring those. But that person would be primarily the point person for anyone coming into the office that wanted to know what the zoning was on a piece of property or something like that, to kind of free up my time with actually working on plan commission projects and things like that. So I had talked to Jamie about potentially reworking that position. If you want me to go back to an assistant planner, I can put it out like that, but I just didn't want to be rehiring this position all the time, because a certain person has to be willing to deal with the public, deal with the angry public, and deal with code enforcement. It takes someone special to do that.
We've lost staff.
Yes, it was too focused for that.
I was gonna ask this question, Jennifer. So you have a vacant position. This is what you're talking about.
So yeah,
replacing
it was.
The assistant planner.
Yeah, we reclassed it to associate planner. I had someone who had that ability. She chose to leave the end of November. I did put out a notice for the associate planner, and the people that I am getting are coming from all over that have
Different
more.
skill set.
Yeah, a different skill set than what my department needs right now.
How long have you had that assistant planner type position? Has that been a recurring position we've had for years? or
The
is that-
last few years it's been, the previous one left within a year. Prior to that, Emily had been here, probably 3 years. She just left because she moved out of the area.
Hmm.
The first one was here for quite a few years and basically left and
Yeah,
moved up in his, it's usually a starting level position.
sure. So would you anticipate the same compensation level for the planner versus the enforcement officer?
It would be on the same pay grade as the assistant planner, which they're probably
Same.
similar positions.
And this still would probably be a entry level, or at least a jumping
It-
around to a next
It
tier. of the-
basically says like a year, it's specifically in the job description is somebody hopefully that has municipal experience.
Background.
Prior to me coming here, the building inspector did a lot, like my position didn't exist. The
Yeah.
building inspector or the administrator handled a lot of basically everything with building and things like that.
So we do anticipate having this probably be a recurring hire regardless of whether it's a planner versus a.
It could, my hope always with that position, even back when Emily was there, as the skill set gets higher, that we could move them into different levels so
Mhm.
that they stayed, or, I mean,
Right.
someday I'm not gonna be here, so you're gonna have to look at some kind of succession planning.
Absolutely. From a budgetary perspective, this, you're not asking for
No.
additional monies.
This
is money
actually
that
would be
we've kind of already
less. It
earmarked.
would be less than what is earmarked for it, because the current position is on the next pay scale.
Yeah, got it. Do you anticipate this, as far as, approving plans and, you know, helping things move faster for residents that are looking to increase or build a deck or whatever? Will this increase the ability, I mean, maybe decrease is the right word, decrease the timing to approve plans and that kind of stuff? Is that you
It could,
anticipate?
yes, it should, because they could be tasked with, all the fence permits so that the two building inspectors don't have to deal with that.
Mhm.
They can deal with the new homes. I mean, we've got, I think there's 20 new homes upstairs right now that have to be reviewed between the two of them.
Awesome.
So, and then they also are gonna be having to inspect all these. And we're also looking at, starting commercial, building inspections, so there'll be an aspect of plan review, with that, and they already are out on commercial sites a lot, but there'll be a little bit more that they have to do with that.
And this person will likely be in the office.
They
of
are in the
public-
office, and that position did handle a lot of it, but I think that knowing that that's what the position
Yeah.
is, makes it maybe a little bit better and
Instead of
easier to
springing it on
get
them,
someone.
they know in advance.
Yeah, we
Okay.
tend to be a department that just flexes with what we need.
Whatever the business needs, right?
Yeah, so it's not, I mean, they could, the last person that had the position basically stated it's a great spot to learn a lot of different things about government,
Yeah.
because we do a lot of different things.
Awesome. Thanks, Vance, for all my questions.
So who is the zoning administrator currently?
Me, I am.
Okay. Because it doesn't, I've looked and it's not part of your title, so I was just curious, because
Yeah.
I just thinking of from a recruitment perspective, it says assistant, but when you don't see.
Yeah, I have that slash, it's on my email. So
So
I,
then that would make sense.
yeah, so
just-
I'm considered the zoning administrator, and then basically all of them are designees. Are listed that way in the department.
So then if you're gonna use this job description, I would just make sure you put that under your title / zoning administrator, because that would be my question if I was looking at this job, kind of going, well, I don't see a zoning administrator, but this would be an assistant.
Anything else? Okay, I had a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Opposed? So carried. Okay, discussion and or possible action on dollar amount to be used for utility refunds, write-offs. I have a motion and put this on the table.
I recommend the village board approve the recommended policy with the following changes. Change it to $20. Both inbound and outbound to write it off. That's the threshold.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded Dennis. Okay, on the question.
Yes, so Jessica, are you okay with, I mean, I'm okay with $10 too, but $10 doesn't even buy a value meal in a drive-through. So how much time do we spend chasing after a $10 bill?
So I'm gonna have to go back and verify with the PSC report. So the water utility is regulated, Public Service Commission, and there is some verbiage in there regarding dollar amounts, so I just need to verify, because I thought Stacy and I looked at it, and that's why we chose the 5. And didn't keep them both at 10. So the Public Service Commission regulates our water utility. They tell us what we cannot do. Michael, you didn't look at that?
I'll try to look
Because
it
you
up.
thought 25 was a good number. I
25 sounded
changed
good.
it to 25 and then I talked to Stacy.
Okay.
And that's why we bumped it down to 5. So I'm willing to change the 10 to a 20, but I'm a little hesitant on changing the 5 unless I go back and reread the PSC regulations.
How many of these do we chase in a month?
Maybe a handful. And they're
So I
usually,
mean, it's not like we're writing off thousands of dollars.
we're not
right?
writing out
But
a
you're gonna spend a pile of time chasing after that 69 cents.
69 cents.
Or I don't know, what is the threshold now?
Right now, we're writing out checks for $1.50, which is
Yeah.
a little bit too much. That's why
Right.
we're brought this year to
It
change
takes a
that.
month and 79 cents to send a $1.50 check that it costs $14 to
Understand.
write.
Yep, that's
By
why
the time
we're
you
here.
paid someone, paid for the printer, paid for the heat.
Are you
Yes.
waiving late charges or anything like that, or not?
So if you were to get a final bill and had a 70-cent late charge, it's waived, because obviously it's under the $5, so. It's where you close at a house and there's an unpaid, because your final bill, you still owe $150. That's what we're going after, or the overpayments happen basically when there was a guesstimate on the final bill. And then we reach out to the closing company and say, who should be getting this back? So
So what do you use now as you said you write out checks for $1 something?
$1.50. That's why we brought this
Are you looking at
policy.
$5 now or what?
Yeah, so if you look at page 81, if the balance of the remaining final bill is between $0 and $5, the utility will absorb the remaining balance by writing that off. But anything over 501 and over, we are looking at issuing a check back.
Just an anecdote. I got a bill for 1 cent from Met Council in Minneapolis. Yeah, it is, the cost it takes to be able to do that on both sides is just silly. I like the idea. I don't know, do you have a sense of how much it takes or what cost it takes to collect on less than $5, or do you?
So you have to remember, we can put anything, $5, is it $5 or $10 on the tax bill? So we send out a letter or so, and then if we are owed, we put it on a tax bill. So that's where we're not.
Yeah.
I guess.
What, if I could ask, what does some of the other communities do? Does it create any audit issues down the road? I mean, we've had some issues over the years on some of the fees that were being collected and stuff, and I'm just curious if that could have problems.
No. We don't. Like I said, we're trying to follow the PSC regarding when we have to refund an overpayment. I read it wrong. nobody correct me, an overpayment of $10.01 or more, we will request a refund check from finance to be mailed to the customer. So if they owe us more than $5, we'll just slap it on the taxes. So I corrected what I was saying before. Again, if we are owed more than $5, we put it on the tax roll and that doesn't cost us anything.
But if they've already closed the loan and sold the home,
We can still put it on the tax roll.
then they collected what from the title company?
No, they'll just collect it from the new owner. If we send out a
Well, we
final,
would collect it from the new one.
the utility will collect it from the new owner. We have a couple of those circumstances already. We have notified the new owner saying that the old owner failed to pay their bill. And we let them know that this will be going on your taxes next year. Then the new owner has the opportunity, if they want to reach out to the title company saying, hey, but the village will not be out that money.
It's good. Good conversations then.
I guess, changing that to 20 or whatever you said, I'm not sure. I like the 5 and the 10.
We can change it to 20. I just gotta be a little bit more careful that $10, I don't know if it can be 20 based on the PSC rules.
Jessica, does this matter what revenue stream this relates to? Meaning if it's a revenue from utilities versus a revenue, monies from some other fund, some of our revenue funds, does it matter?
We're solely talking about the utility.
This is just talking about utilities.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's only related to a final bill?
Yep, we've had issues, so I told Stacy we'd get that clarified. So that's why we put some dollar amounts to follow.
Any other comments? Okay, we had a motion and a second. But it is to. We had a motion, a second to approve, but to increase it to $20.
Correct. You want to add on that for maximum amount allowed?
Yes. So I'll withdraw that motion.
Okay, who had the second? Who had the
Dennis.
second?
Dennis.
Oh, I said that, okay. So I have a motion, a second to withdraw. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now what?
New motion.
New motion.
So we're to recommend the board approve the recommended policy with the following changes. On page 81. Strike the number $5 and replace it with 20. And strike the number $10.01. And replace with 20 or maximum allowable by the PSC regulations.
Can I have a motion?
I'll second that.
Steve? On the question?
I just wanted to ask Jessica one more time, if this went from 5 to 20, do you see this being a bigger impact? How much more do you think we would get in that $15 range to having these types of?
I think it's immaterial to the utility as a whole. The utilities revenues are over $1 million, which obviously is a lot, but compared to the $5 we're talking about, and there's not that many in a month, we'll probably have maybe 5, and a lot of them are just the penalties, so it's not significant.
Personally, I think 20, if there was an overpayment and I found out that I overpaid by $19 and I didn't get it back, I'd be a little upset.
That's where
I mean,
I'd be too.
I have a real problem with that one.
So it's just $20 on number 1 here where
Well, he said both of them,
On 1 and 4.
oh,
put $20 on both of them.
But he did add that regarding with the PSC, so
Right.
I was,
The PSC is at $10, then it's at $10. PSC is
Exactly.
at $5, it's at $5.
yep,
But if the PSC increases through the years, we also wouldn't have to bring back the policy. We would just take whatever their max is until we'd hit 20.
yeah.
We gotta stop writing 79-cent checks. That's what it
Oh,
comes down
right,
to.
but
And we gotta stop hounding for 79 cents. I don't care if you put it on the tax roll, we have more than 79 cents in paper dollars to collect the 79 cents. Write it
Well,
up.
79, we can't put 79 cents on the tax roll, it has to be 5 or more.
But I guess I have a problem with $20. If I overpaid something and I was owed $20 and found out that the utility was just gonna keep it, that made me a little upset. $20, I mean, who knows how come the $20 is there, but that's my money, not yours.
Then you should write the check appropriately.
Well, that's, maybe I didn't write it. Okay, on the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No.
I oppose the second one.
So 2 opposed, Dennis and Mark.
I just feel $20 is too much to pocket. Okay, update on tax collection process.
Just a quick summary I have here, it's just for your FYI. Total levy decreased from 2020, we'll call it the 24 levy versus the 25 levy. Total levy decreased 435,000, but our total collections through the 10th of January decreased 2 million. Talked to Sarah, she's our main, she's in control of our tax collections down in the clerk's department, and we didn't receive some large escrow checks from CoreLogic. CoreLogic is one of our main escrow companies that sends very large checks to us. Like, it's not common to get $1 million check from CoreLogic for all the escrows that they have. So it's probably just timing. Another interesting point, we collected $494,000 more at the counter, meaning these are the people that are walking in, giving us funds. We kind of anticipate that with taking pets back. But other than that, it's a quick summary through the 10th of January. We collect through the end of the month and then we'll be done.
Yeah.
So what was the delay in getting the tax bills out this year? I know there's state statute that states it gotta be mailed by the 3rd Monday, sent by the 3rd Monday. I don't know what that means.
So
mailed. We've
the
got some legal
delay was
representation here.
on December 2nd, I went to go approve everything and I noticed that because I do the calculation for the tax rate on my own Excel worksheet and it wasn't matching. I was trying to figure out why isn't it not matching. Realized the assessed values that we had, the state had and the county had were all different. So I used what the state has. I took that and then what appeared on my screen when I was ready to enter the tax roll through the county's program. So the county has a program that I go online and it has already the assessed values in there. And I looked at them and they didn't match. And I emailed the county treasurer. I said, we're not matching. I said, maybe, I figured they were wrong. The state can't be wrong. But that took a little bit of time and they're like, oh, we found it. What it actually was a cell phone tower on a manufacturing property. So our assessor grabbed that cell phone tower and put it on the commercial line for our assessed value. The state took that same cell phone tower and they put it on manufacturing. So when I was looking at the county's numbers, it was double counted because it was in the manufacturing and the commercial lines. So that took a while to figure out as it was finding.
Manufacturing is done at the state level,
Yes, that's
as
correct.
is most of the cell towers too, right?
Well, that's not true. So cell phone towers were originally personal property last year. So now they're getting a real estate bill. So it's just handled a little bit differently. And between the state and our assessor, they both grabbed the same thing. So it was figured out and later corrected. We did get notice from the county, I think on Monday, so that was probably the day that the tax bills needed to go out, that our taxes were ready. So we got everything figured out on Monday. There's no way that we as a village staff could have mailed out all those tax bills. Plus, we send them to a third party normally. So with the third party, it took an additional week. We use the third party because it saves us a ton on postage, because they pull all the digital information off those tax bills and they organize it by zip code. So we get charged 54 cents instead of 70 cents for mailing out each envelope.
And what's our plan for 25, so we don't have a glitch in the matrix here?
I could not have really done it any, and like I said, I
Not saying we
found
did
it
anything
this-
different, I'm just asking.
I don't think we have a different plan. I don't think the village could do anything different to have changed the outcome. We found it on the 2nd of December. That was pretty good. Why it took the county to get that long, that's beyond my control.
We won't have the issue of the personal property moving to the real estate bill though, where hopefully we wouldn't have the double entry. Those that had the personal property hadn't previously gone to the state for manufacturing. So.
Okay, anything else? Okay, we need a motion to go into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85, parent 1, parent C, to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of a public employee over which the government body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, to wit, recommend 2025 market adjustment compensation changes for competitiveness, and recommend that merit adjustment compensation changes for performance. Reclassification review procedures from public works maintainer to public works operator. Okay, I need a motion of that. You don't have to, I read it, so.
We'll go into closed session.
Second.
Motion by Jim, second by Linda. Roll call.
Dirk Slooby. Ermeling,
Aye.
Hacksmith,
Aye.
Barr,
Aye.
Minell,
Aye.
Pincinel,
Yes.
Zagami,
Aye.
Recommendation to the village board on the 2025 market adjustment compensation changes for competitiveness and recommended merit adjustment compensation changes for performance.
Move to recommend the 2025 market and merit adjustments to the village board of trustees as presented starting on January 20th, and move to recommend reclassification of public works maintainer to public works operator as presented.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Husheng. On the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so carried. I,
think it should be in there from the grade change, grade G to grade H.
okay, the motion to approve the reclassification from public works is that what the one you're talking about?
Right.
Maintainer, grade G to public works operator, grade H.
We can just have that noted in the minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and then. Okay, that took care of. Both of them, correct?
Yes. Motion included both.
Do you have all in favor? Can't remember.
Yes, you did.
Okay, okay. Remarks from committee members. Okay,
I have a future item but no remark.
okay. Remarks from chair, none. Future item, summary of tasks done in finance. And Jim, you have something else?
Yeah, so can we do budget different this year and start at $0 instead of starting at $24 and adding. We can actually take a really hard look and we've got extremely talented, smart individuals in all of our departments. I think we put our heads together. There's definitely some opportunities to free up dollars in our budget, in operational expenses here that may or may not get used somewhere else or would prevent a tax increase in the future. I can think of many of them, but this isn't the time to discuss that right now.
So you want to start with 0 instead of using
Using last year's
year's
$354,000 for potholes or whatever that number was. Take each department. And instead of using last year's whatever, throw that away. Start with 0.
Well, if they didn't need to fill as many potholes, that number would go down in their budget. If they need to fill more, it would go up. So I guess that.
Let me zoom
You
out
lost
that far. Public Works, come up with a number from 0. Planning, come up with a number from 0. Finance, come up with a number from 0. Not use 2024 plus.
We can discuss it. We'll add it for the next agenda.
Thank you.
Okay, future items, there again, that summary of tasks. Next meeting is February 17th at 4:30. So we need to be excused, then can you share from me?
Absolutely.
Motion to adjourn? Steve, second?
Second.
Second for Jim. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, we are adjourned at 6:26.
Thank you for having me.